Hello everyone, it's Brett here, Lionheart84, and I'm just going to do a shortish video on my tree tomatoes today, or tamarillos, and I'm going to do a pruning experiment with them and try 3 different methods. Now, what's brought this on is I featured my tamarillos in a short video probably about a week ago, where I was just showing they happen to be the plants I picked to show the difference between some plants that were growing inside the house and some that were outside in the garden, just to look at the sort of difference in characteristics between them. And someone posted on that video, one of my subscribers said that I'm growing all my tree tomatoes completely wrong and should have cut them all back to 6 inches by now, and gave me the link to a video for professional tree tomato growers in, I believe, South America, so one of the countries where they are growing for their actual crops. And the video, to be honest, made very interesting watching, to see the techniques they employ there. But of course, the problem with growing a plant like a tree tomato or tamarillo in its native climate and soil, and attempting to be crazy enough to grow one in the UK, is the difference in the conditions is staggering. To give you an example, they were featuring these tree tomatoes that they'd planted in the ground, and when they got to about about a foot to 18 inches tall, they cut them back to about, I guess, about 6 or 8 inches, and then they showed the plants and said, okay, these tree tomatoes are now 6 months old and they're 5 to 6 feet tall. Well, that shows you the immediate difference in the growing conditions, because these plants that I've got here, which are probably 3 feet tall now, these were sown from seed I think last August, so they're now coming up to 12 months old, and they've taken all of 12 months to grow to 3 feet, albeit very healthily, whereas in South America, on the farm where they were growing them, they were growing 5 to 6 feet in 6 months. Now, you have to look at the horticultural differences. In their own climate, these plants will grow all year round. They've got different heat, different humidity, different levels of hours of sunlight, different levels of daylight, different composts. Everything in their natural growing conditions or their natural climate is perfect for them. Now, when you try to switch any tropical plant or subtropical plant from its native tropical growing conditions to what effectively is a cool, temperate climate, where at least 6 months of the year they really don't grow, you have to think very carefully about how you grow them. And the principle behind what they were doing on the farm where they were growing them is they would cut the stem right back to about 8 inches, and then that would allow 2 or 3 strong side shoots to grow vertically, and they would normally select the best 2, and then they'd string the 2 shoots together so they supported each other, and the side shoots obviously develop flowers much quicker than the main shoots. But with the time they take to grow here, I'm not sure how successful that method's going to be. Obviously, it would be nice to get flowers, but in their own native climate, you would probably expect them to be starting to flower and fruit at the end of 12 months, so you don't have to worry too much about keeping them alive in adverse conditions. And I would imagine they probably crop them for no more than 2 or 3 years before they replant with fresh plants. They certainly don't let them grow 12 or 15 feet tall. They seem to keep them to about 6 feet and get nice firm bushes. Now, on the other hand, the speed these grow here, I would say they're going to take at least 2 years, possibly 3 years, before they realistically get to a a decent flowering and potential fruiting size. So you need to think about how to keep these plants alive for 2 or 3 years. Now obviously, these are like any subtropical or tropical. If you're fortunate enough to have a Kew Gardens type heated greenhouse, you just stick them in the ground and away they go, and then after the appropriate period of time you will have your flowers and fruits. But for me, growing them outdoors in summer and then bringing them inside into my kitchen in winter, I have to think carefully about how best to keep them alive in the winter months and keep them healthy and disease free and keep them going to the next year and hope they're going to get flowers. Now what I've decided to do, as I'm fortunate enough to have about 8 healthy tamarillos, these are 3 that are the same size, so I thought they would make the good basis for an experiment. As I've got plenty of surplus ones, I've decided that I'm going to take the advice of the growers, the professional growers, and I'm going to cut one of them down to about probably just over 12, probably about 12 to 14 inches, and leave 2 leaf stems on it and an outward facing bud, which is going to be the middle one. I'm going to, with the second one, I'm going to simply take off the top shoot and leaf, so I'm only taking about 2 inches of stem off, and on the third one I'm going to leave it untouched and let the growing stem keep on growing until it gets to about 5 or 6 feet tall, and then pinch it out, because what I want to see is, will I get those side shoots like they did on the ones in South America? I would imagine they're probably growing them commercially in somewhere like Colombia, and we'll see what happens. So what I'm going to do now, I'll just find my secateurs I've got. It's like pulling teeth cutting a lovely, wonderful looking plant off this much, but I'm going to have to do it because I need to give the experiment its best chance. So on this middle one here, I've decided I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it at an angle here, probably about 1 inch above the stem. I mean, you could probably try and root the top section, but I don't think there's any need to, because I've got plenty of them anyway. They've got a little bit of green fly on them, so while they're out here I'll spray them as well. So that's the first one. The second one, I'm just going to take off this top piece of growth here, if I can manage to do it cleanly. I'll take the top growth, and the third one I'm going to leave completely untouched. It's got more green fly on it. Now all I'm going to do, apparently, grab my other piece of equipment. Apparently these are very prone to getting diseases through the open wounds, I suppose because they're soft tissue. Perhaps not so prone to it here in our climate, but maybe where they grow them naturally, where it's a lot more humid, they get a lot more fungus spores. So what I'm going to do, I've got some pruning paint here. This is an organic one, garlic barrier pruning paint. It's a lovely pink colour. So I'm being assaulted by flying ants today. They seem to be out in force. So if I can just get this open. This is a lovely, you'll see it's a lovely sort of pink. It's a nice pink colour. So what I'm going to do is dab that on the open wounds to seal it. And that dries to a nice hard pink finish. Same on this one. Let's see if I can get the camera on it so you can see what I'm doing. These don't produce a large amount of sap like on figs when you cut them. The wound seems to stay dry. Let's put that back in the pot. That should be plenty. Let me move this shoot out of the way. Sometimes it's heartbreaking to cut something like that off of plants, but if you're going to do a worthwhile experiment to see what happens, you have to do it. So that'll be the 3 plants. One with the top growth pitched out at about 3 feet. One cut back to, I suppose, 12 to 14 inches. And one of them where I'm not going to cut the buds out at all. and in a couple of months time, as we get towards the end of summer, we'll have a look at them and see what's happened, because with our growing season I'm not going to suddenly have a 12-inch tall side shoots on that centre one, because it's just not warm enough or consistent enough here. But I thought we'd, having watched the professional growers, I thought I'd try 3 different methods here just to see what happens for anyone that's interested. So that's my Tamarillo or tree tomato pruning experiment, to see what the end result is, and obviously I'll keep you updated throughout the summer if we start to see side shoots developing on the short one. And I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to watch this video, especially if you watched it to the end. Please remember to give me a thumbs up, i.e. a like. Share the video if you think anyone's interested, or if you know anybody else who might be growing tree tomatoes, and see how they're looking after theirs in terms of pruning. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you're interested in this or anything else that I'm doing. And if you click the bell, you will be notified of new videos as I post them in the future, including videos for tree tomatoes, hopefully not with someone's lawnmower running in the background. Anyway, Brett's out for now, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.